Welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success story series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And today I'm delighted to have with us Dr. Ben Sinclair, who's the Medical Director at Dr. Finlay's private practice. So Ben, thank you so much for coming on board. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Dr. Finlay's to the audience, that would be great.
Lovely. Thanks, Chris. My name's Dr. Ben Sinclair. I'm a GP by training, but I'm a bit of an entrepreneur as well. And I set up Dr. Finlay's private practice to bring really high quality private healthcare to people who are willing to engage with the health and get things sorted. And we have a base in Birmingham with 3 clinics there, and launching clinics in North Yorkshire and Harrogate, in Barnsley, and soon in Sevenoaks. So it's really good to be here with you. Thank you, Chris.
Brilliant. Well, as you said, as well as being a doctor, you're a bit of an entrepreneur. If you could kind of maybe talk about your the background, how you got into business, and yeah. I guess it's obvious why this one, but what were the key drivers?
Sure. Well, my grandpa was a GP, and he always used to sort of be loved by his patients, well known by them. And so I kind of aspired to that when I wanted to be a doctor from as long as I can remember, actually. It was quite hard for me, though, because I didn't get into medical school the first time. I had to retake my A-levels, and then I kept trying to get in. I got in on my 3rd attempt, and went to Leeds University, studied there 6 years, and then spent a long time in Yorkshire, mainly based in York, providing GP and training there. And when I'd fully qualified as GP, I spent some time in Cambodia doing medical relief work. And I came back, and the landscape had changed, and partnership was different, and it just felt like not quite the thing that I'd trained for. And the way it was being delivered didn't feel kind of like it was the quality I was hoping to be able to deliver. The time had been narrowed, all the kind of buffers had been removed from the day, and it was just patient after patient after patient, and you felt drained, and you couldn't really deliver a really high quality service. So at that point, I started looking into delivering more sort of private preventative healthcare and talks and promotions, starting off with men, and then that led to setting up a private practice with a non-clinical business partner in York in 2015, and then moved from York down to the Midlands, and I set up my sort of next venture here, which is Dr. Finlay's, in 2018, and we've been growing since then. So yeah, I kind of like a mixture of medicine and business. It's a nice combination, and I always say, good medicine makes good business, and vice versa.
It's great. No, I mean, when we were talking about it earlier, it reminded me of the family doctor we had when I was a kid. And
yeah, it's just like that.
And he'd come to the odd family event, and it was somebody that you're able to have a proper conversation with.
That's it.
As part of as part of your health, I guess, as well. It was the feeling that you would trusting your GP in a very more fundamental way, I think, because they knew your background as well as your physical health, I guess.
I think we need to know our patients, and if we know our patients, we're going to see things either subconsciously or consciously that they present with, and also know when it's important or important to them, and also know when something changes. If you don't have a relationship with a patient, you're starting cold, and you've lost that massive continuity. So I think the old-fashioned GP relationship and cutting-edge technology is a great kind of combination here. We need to do them both, and technology has seemed to sort of push the time and the humanity out of medicine, but actually I'm trying to push that back in. So I spend a long time with the GPs that we work with, giving them more time. Our minimum appointment is 30 minutes for a routine. So we really go deep, really get to know someone. We're looking at the whole person, not just this one thing they're presenting with, or we're going to find out all the things about them in an integrated way, diet, lifestyle, stress, sleep, exercise. So you name it, those things will impact their health. So it's just important to look at the whole person, and we need to be trusted, because if people don't trust you, they're not going to follow your advice. And we have to earn that trust. We don't get it ascribed to us. So that half hour is a really key meeting of the minds. Usually they say that a patient will the speed of trust is usually about 2 minutes. If you kind of, in that time, if you can listen to the patient and, begin to kind of grasp who they are, what they're about, then that therapeutic relationship begins and it grows. And if you have a healthy, happy doctor, you're going to have healthy, happy patients who recover faster. So we try and really help our doctors to have quality lifestyle balance. And so I try and do lots of that kind of stuff too, to keep myself going.
Brilliant. And in terms of the business side, I mean, what are some of the key challenges that you faced as you've grown the business?
Yeah, so I think partly recognizing the need for things like marketing and PR, because we initially grew by word of mouth, and that was fine. Then I needed to grow things, so I got more clinics in Birmingham. The lockdown happened, and that was huge because it really changed us and pushed us into more of a more personal service. We were a bit more corporate before. We still look after lots of corporates and SMEs, but we now look after whole families as well as whole companies. So, and that sort of started with, company director said, right, I'm with you, but and my staff are with you, but can you see my wife? And her sister needs your menopause clinic, and actually, my son's got this. Can you? So it grows from there. And but then I think we realized we need to bring that to more people as we want to promote this way of doing medicine and doing kind of healthy living. So as we grew, we had to start kind of marketing ourselves through social media. It's not something we're trained in as doctors. Heck, business isn't something we're trained in as doctors. So my dad was an accountant, and we used to buy and sell cars, and then I bought a house as a student, and so I kind of had some familiarity with business. But I think one of the big challenges is quality control. So I really vet my staff carefully because I want them to be, basically doing what I would do. And that means my dad is disabled in a wheelchair after a spinal injury. And basically, whenever I see a patient, I think, what would my dad want? How would he want to be treated in this moment? How are we going to give that patient dignity and respect and autonomy? And if it was me, what would I want for my dad, my sister, my wife, my child? And so I try and infuse those values in the recruitment process and also in the training. So we spend a number of months sort of just making sure with the right candidate who's selected from thousands of applicants, right, okay, and now what are you going to do next? And what will you do next? Because there's always something else that you can do to support somebody. And also, I think in the NHS, we got used to just saying no all the time.
Yeah.
I want to be a yes man like Jim Carrey. I want to say yes to everything. So basically, even if I can't do it, I'll say a bit Richard Branson. I'll say yes, and then work out how we can help. There's always something you can do to help people, and even if you can't do it yourself, you can find someone you can. So we've got a dedicated team of admins who have trained up to basically find stuff for us. So I'll go, look, we need a blood test in Manchester tomorrow. I need you to find that, please. Find that for me, because this guy is in a meeting in Manchester tomorrow. He needs to get this blood test done this busy working day. And so bang, our health concierge, scribble away, find that, get it sorted. The results come back to us, and it all kind of comes into our big kind of computer, which then we get it all back. So it's that kind of concierge style that you you can't really teach. You've got to kind of live. So we're always trying to overachieve. We're always trying to blast the patient expectations out of the water, because that's what I would want.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's bang on. We teach a different type of recruitment that is very similar to in philosophy to yours, and that's for me is based on the idea that traditional recruitment is we recruit on experience but sack on attitude. So most of the selection is around the experience, the credentials, etc. But given a base level of experience, and obviously that would be quite important as a doctor.
Absolutely.
I always say if I ever need a brain surgeon, I'd like to be fairly qualified, not just really enthusiastic.
Yeah.
But given the level, it's then about attitude, because we can, you can train skills, but we can't really train attitude. It's a sort of, you're either got to match or you haven't of how you should behave.
And we recruit for values and for attitudes, like you say. So, we want lifelong learners, because I learn every day. I research every patient who comes through the door, and all of their conditions. And that's a really great way to be, because I'm learning new stuff all the time.
Yep.
So my CPD portfolio is just sort of bursting, because I'm forever looking something up, going, oh, do you know what? I haven't heard of that. Let's have a look at that, Or a patient will go in and say, oh, I want to try this treatment. I'm like, well, okay, let's look at that. And so we'll try and put that through our sort of knowledge sieve, and it all gets added to the matrix of expanding knowledge. And so I want doctors who can do the same. At the same time, I don't want doctors who are kind of godlike and over authoritarian. We have authority. We need to make sure we wield it carefully and sort of wisely and appropriately. So we try and avoid all the pitfalls whilst getting the kind of top benefits. And yeah, you're right, there's a baseline of experience that and they've got to be an outstanding GP with at least 10 years post-qualification experience before we'll consider kind of working with them. And our GPs are leaders in their field. They're fantastic. I am dwarfed by their ability, because I'm sort of the jack of all trades. They have specialties, although I do have a specialty in long COVID now, which is something that I've developed because I got long COVID last year, and that was pretty dramatic. So I've actually become a bit of a national expert in that. Almost by default of actually going through the experience myself, but as a doctor with understanding and finding solutions. So I think the recruitment process is a bit different to your usual tick box exercise, and it's also a tryout. So we do a sort of 6-month probation. I will almost take them back to the registrar level training, where they'll come with me, they'll see how I practice. I will then sit with them, see how they practice. We'll do feedback. And when you're 10 years post-qualified, you just don't get that anymore. But actually, it's a real joy to do that. And also, I get people watching my practice, and I learn from them. So it's kind of a win-win.
Brilliant. Sounds absolutely fascinating. And in terms of business itself, what are the biggest things you've learned about business as you've developed?
Interesting. I think people buy from people.
Yep.
So I found that actually I'm probably the best salesman for the business, because I know it inside out. I work it. Whenever I might try and devolve that to someone else, I need to be really involved in the process to make sure they totally get this. And I think that connection, when you connect with someone, they trust you, and then they will use your product. So I found that usually if I have a conversation with someone, they become my patient pretty quickly. And so I think connecting with people, for me, I guess as a people person, that's really important anyway. But I think in business, people buy from people. I think what else have I learned? I think don't run before you can walk. This sort of we've had expansion twice. So pre-lockdown, we had a sort of rapid expansion to 2 clinics, and then we had to shut one that we launched in February 2020. Beautiful new clinic, and then unfortunately in March the streets were dead, and that was a huge challenge. Necessity being the mother of invention pushed us out onto the streets to the domestic areas, and we started home visiting at that point. Which was great. The sort of making sure that you've got all your ducks in line before you expand. And we're in a new expansion phase now, and it's very different because we've done it 3 times. We've got this kind of set, right, we do this and this and this, and that process, we know what we're doing, and we need these things in place. I am a bit of a sort of Branson-esque, sort of say yes and then work out how to do it type yes. And I've always been a bit of a I don't know, just a pioneer, I suppose. People always go, oh, how did you set up your clinic? And I'm like, well, I just started doing it. You just, and I think if you don't, my dad always said, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I've always just sort of asked the question, been willing to try and get the right people around you. So I think what else? I think recruiting the right people is really important, and knowing what you need is also really important. So I've recruited to complement my strengths. Because I'm not really an administrator. I don't really like IT. I like connecting with people, and I like making them get better. So so that's my strength. My PA is the exact opposite of that. So she she basically was recruited to make sure that I'm organized, I turn up on time, all my diary is pre-programmed. And I love that, because I just turn up and I go, what am I doing today? Because she's got the criteria of how to book people in with me. And I trust her implicitly to do that. And she does. And she's great at making sure there's enough time to get to places, take a breath, have enough travel time, arrive fresh, all that kind of thing, even when it gets busy,
Yes.
So I think that the sort of the people bit has been really important. And I think sometimes you think you know what you want, and then you have to try it out and then realize you want something different.
Yep.
So I've actually diversified more roles. So initially I sort of had an operations manager and PA role rolled into one, but it became clear that I needed a specific PA and then kind of an admin team as well. So we now have a call center who take all the calls. My PA is my PA, and as I get busier, she's gold dust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because my time is tight, and so she schedules calls for me when I'm in the car and that kind of thing. We stratify things on relevance and importance to try and make sure that my time is really well used. And I'm a family guy. I've got 3 kids. I want to make sure that I'm not just there in the wee hours missing them. I want to make sure that I'm home. So my afternoon appointments are usually online from home, so that I can be there when the kids get home from school. And the aim is to sort of have this balanced lifestyle. So I try and get up in the morning, do some exercise, then go to work. So I've kind of done the hard stuff first, eat the frog.
That obviously that's a Brian Tracy's to be eat the frog. And the other thing that you mentioned, which is something Brian Tracy talks about, is a lot of people have a belief of, I've got to strengthen my weaknesses, I've got to make those better. But Brian's very much, and we work with clients a lot on this, is why. If we know we're not particularly good at it, let's get somebody else that absolutely is brilliant and loves it.
Yeah. If their passion, Zoe likes nothing better than organising me, and I'm like, that's lovely, because that floats your boat. For me, that saps my energy, all that kind of admin stuff. So I love it when she's on fire, because it makes me on fire. And I think you should play to your strengths, right? I spent a long time feeling like I wasn't a specialist, and looking at other people who were like psychiatrists or surgeons, and I've come to the conclusion that I am a true generalist. I really enjoy. I get driven by enthusiasm, and I get driven by fascination with new things, or with things that are a variety. I couldn't be a brain surgeon and just do very minute stuff, or a dentist, something I'd probably shoot myself. But seeing different people, having a bit of variety, a bit of uncertainty. I work as a prison doctor as well, so that gives you the kind of excitement element, the A&E kind of feel, and a little bit of sort of adrenaline in your life occasionally. I like variety.
Brilliant. And you mentioned 1 or 2 quotes. Are there any other sort of key? I love to collect quotes that you still fall back on or use a lot.
You asked that question, and I often my mind goes blank at that point, but they'll probably come out as I'm talking to you, because I've read quite a few books along the way. I usually dip in and out of them, being a kind of enthusiast. I'll read a chapter and then I'll get another book, and so my bedside is full of books I've read half of, and then kind of either got bored or felt like I've absorbed the key messages. So I'll come back to you on that, but they may come out as we talk.
Perfect. Absolutely fine. Some people use them a lot, some people don't. But as you say, some people go. But it's interesting actually that quite often we use a lot, and we don't realise we're using them a lot. And obviously sometimes it's worth asking our team.
I think they come out of you, don't they? They become part of you. And then I'm a big believer in the sponge effect. The one thing I did to get through med school was to go to all the lectures, sit at the front, and take notes, and that's what I sponge, and if you ask me what I'd learned, I probably couldn't tell you now, but it's all been plugged into this big matrix that then it pulls out, and your brain kind of brings back stuff to you, and you're like, wow, I don't know quite where I know this from, but I know that is linked to and it's sort of amazing kind of matrix of knowledge. So I think you are the sum of all of your experiences in that respect, and a lot of the books I've read have become part of me.
Brilliant. Well, I'm sure we'll 1 or 2 things will come out as we continue. And I know you're aware we're a business coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who are the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general?
Yeah. Okay, well, I've had three main kind of business or personal coaches in my lifetime. I always knew that it was an important relationship to have as kind of a mentoring relationship. I was lucky at med school to have a lovely guy who was a consultant pediatrician who had been a missionary doctor, and he inspired me, a bit like my grandpa, who was also a missionary doctor out abroad, to kind of adventure and kind of broadening my horizons and not just settling for the kind of desk job, you know.
Yep.
So I think early on he was great and encouraging, and he was just there. I could speak to him about stuff. He got it, you know. You're young and inexperienced, trying to make your way. And heck, I was probably quite gung ho. I was in the Territorial Army for 2 years at uni, and you know, I was probably a bit arrogant at the time, but he tolerated me. So I was like, I can just talk to this guy. It's great. And then when I started doing business, I had a friend who's still part of my company now, Mary Gopsill, who basically has really been my sounding board over the years. She's a fantastic friend to our family, and so we've known each other since about 2002 when we first moved to York. And she's the only person that I have as a shareholder in my company. It's just me and my wife apart from that. But she's always been there to kind of bounce ideas off. I always come away from those conversations feeling energized.
Yep.
And she's always willing to ask the difficult question, and also, you know, she'll be able to take whatever I've thrown at her, and she knows what the next step is. So she's helped us to scale, which is fantastic. Another fantastic coach I had was Danny Greaveson, who, when I first moved to Birmingham, I met her at a networking event, and we got talking about things, and she really helped me to begin to kind of get a sort of CEO head on.
Yep.
Because I was really a cottage industry then with one clinic. It was just me. I was looking to recruit, but you know, it was kind of early days yet. And so she really encouraged me to sort of, on a day-to-day level, to begin to think about routine and habits and other, you know, those kind of things. Because I'm not the most routine person unless I program myself. You know, I like variety. At the same time, I do benefit from routine. So you know, consistency is king, right? No, there's another quote. There we go. Consistency.
Right.
yeah. So the last thing I've done a 6-month sort of program just in the last 6 months to take me to the next level, because I knew we were growing. We had 3 clinics in Birmingham. I was like, we want to do a national expansion. I feel like I need to go to the next level personally. I met a lovely guy called Andrew Laird at the Castle Howard Triathlon. We got talking about health, and he was just embarking on his coaching, mentoring career. And so I was his first candidate for this new program called the Wholeness School. It's about all that stuff that I love, all about being complete, integrated. It's kind of, you know, sort of think it, feel it, live it. You know, it's the whole thing. And so every month I went up to North Yorkshire, which is lovely because I love Yorkshire, and hung out with him. We did a whole day, including PT, you know, prayer, meditation, visualization, a lot of scripting, which I haven't done before, which I found really powerful. So, you know, making these kind of scripts to affirm your beliefs and to aspire to as well, you know, because I think we do become what we think about the most, or speak over ourselves the most. So there's another quote for you. So I think, and he's been brilliant. The last 6 months, I've completed this full cycle. We had an hour a week in between these day retreats, and go through key lessons about sort of your contribution. Really, it's about your contribution in all areas of life, not just business, because we know that the businessman is supported by countless other people. I don't believe in a self-made man. I think there's someone, and they have a whole support team behind them, and you know, their sort of productivity and contribution is very dependent on their foundations and their support system. So I have a fantastic wife who you know, puts up with my kind of crazy ideas, you know, one in 10 of which will come off. And she was willing to move to Birmingham, and she's a lawyer as well. We've got 3 kids, you know, so she's supported me, and without that I would not be where I am now. So you've got to have those people around you. But Andrew has been fantastic in the last 6 months, and you know, I'm I'm contributing into the course as well, because they have a sort of need for kind of expert health advice as well. And a lot of people, another quote from me, I think you see a lot of thin billionaires.
Yes.
Because they've got their lives and their business sorted.
Yes.
And I think often we strive so hard, but we get lost in the process, or our health suffers. And so, I really want to make sure that we look after all those people, so that we all arrive in good shape and get to enjoy the fruits of our labour. And that last 6 months has been very much about putting in those habits for me. So early morning cold water immersion, breath work, exertion, physical exertion training, getting enough sleep, avoiding excesses, and enjoying the ride, because you might have this crazy thing that you are doing and it's really exciting, but you're exhausted and you're scared, you're going to sit your pants, and actually you don't enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it on the way. Otherwise, what's the point?
100%. It's a big part of why I do what I do. Is too many people in business assume they've got to put their life on hold and suffer for 10 years or whatever, and hopefully the millions turn up. And my proposition is, if we love what we do every day, then we'll clearly be happier, but we'll probably get there more quickly, more efficiently, and end up more profitable than we would have been if we do things we don't want to do and we don't enjoy.
100%.
And it's so critical. There is a quote, funnily enough, which you may well have heard, but I think is very relevant what you said. It is, and I think it's the Dalai Lama, and he said, most people or business people spend sacrifice their health to make a lot of money, and then when they get older, they use their money to try and regain their health, and it's a very clear thing of why not do both at the same time? And
absolutely, I think we have to somehow build the matrix to support realistic expectations whilst reaching for the moon. So you've got to kind of live every day like it's your last, but plan like you've got 50 years left. And I think it's like with everything, it's kind of both and the balance for me is the key thing. If we can balance these things, we're so much more likely to be happy, contented, aware enough to be sort of aware of the issues around us, to value the relationships that we have, not just to make money. And it's at the end of the day, you can't take it with you. So that was a big thing for me was the very first lesson in my mentoring thing was, imagine it's your funeral. It was a bit grim. Who's going to be there? What's your legacy? And I've had cancer, so I have stared death in the face, and that really is sobering thought. What are you going to do? What kind of legacy are you going to leave for your family, your children, your other half, your relatives, your community, your church, your loved ones, your friends? Who are they going to think you were? What are they going to remember you for? Because actually, ultimately, that's the impact you're going to have when you get there. And it's not all about leaving something behind, but I think if you live by your values, hopefully you'll have a good legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. Obviously, you're very you develop, you're learning all the time, and obviously you're quite self-aware. And I'm interested to know what you've learned about yourself as you've grown as an entrepreneur.
Interesting. So we have a long history of bipolar in my family, and I would say what I've learned is that I'm not bipolar, but I think I have this trait of sort of highs and lows. So one thing I've learned is to bounce all my decisions off someone else if I'm feeling a little bit excited and high, because they need moderation, and I might get so excited about one idea and think, yeah, this is brilliant, this is going to be amazing, it's going to be the best idea ever. And my wife is very good at keeping my feet on the ground, and Mary is very good at sort of saying, well, let's look at the downside, or what else can we do, and then so I think learning to live with your own natural rhythms is probably something I've learned about myself. I already mentioned the thing about just sort of, I think, natural selling. My father-in-law was a fantastic salesman for many years in the financial sector, and then went on to have his own financial sort of consultancy and financial services business, so I've absorbed a lot of his techniques. So I think just naturally talking to people and not trying to sort of sell the thing, but sell the benefits of it, and that comes across if you're enthusiastic about your product.
Yes.
I think be kind to yourself on the way is probably something else I've learned, because I think I've burnt out 2 or 3 times, and it's not worth it. It's not worth going at 130 miles an hour when actually it's not sustainable. So actually those sort of, as I'm very ancient now into my 40s, I think I've learned that you need to look after yourself on the way, and don't, there's no point in burning out, because it's really unproductive and takes a long time to recover from.
Yeah, bang on. So looking forward, what obviously you're in quite a significant expansion mode at the moment, but what does the future look like, and what challenges do you face, if any?
Yeah, well, I think the long COVID thing's been interesting, because I've now got an international following, which one of my mantras was to be the CEO of an international network of clinics. And within a few months of saying that, I released one video on Facebook, and it went viral, and loads of people started contacting me about long COVID from all over the world. So ironically, it kind of started happening. What does the future look like? I think we would love to have a clinic base in most major cities to cover the major areas where people live. And we're starting that with places that I'm familiar with. So I spent more time in Yorkshire than anywhere else in my life, and I grew up in Kent, so that's why we're looking to plant there. We would love to expand our kind of repertoire of services as people need. So menopause has been the big one. We launched in March 2020 with menopause, and then had to shut down. So it's nice that then Davina did that program, and that raised the awareness of menopause. We always thought that would come because it was unmasked by mental health awareness at work, and menopause was the next frontier, because a lot of females in work found that they were being diagnosed with anxiety through mental health awareness, but actually it was menopause or perimenopause that was the problem, not anxiety. So their productivity at work was going down, and we now know a lot of that is perimenopause or menopause. So we're going to really expand our menopause operation. The long COVID operation is kind of growing. I'm releasing a series of videos on that to help people gain awareness and what they can do, lifestyle. And we sort of use medicine last. I know that sounds a bit strange, but I'm quite functional. So we do everything first to make sure that you've got an optimized system, and then add the medicine if necessary. So with long COVID, there's so many things you can do that we're going to release a whole series of videos on: sleep, nutrition, recovery, stress, some strange collections of symptoms that occur, and also therapies that might help. So and then medicine is the kind of the crowning element. I think I would love to spend sort of, as I do now, part-time seeing patients and part-time developing the clinic. I love mentoring, and so I spend about an hour with each of my doctors who's now kind of gone through induction once a month, just checking in with them, make sure okay. So I'd love to grow that. I'd love to have a national conference of doctors who we work with, and we're starting to franchise as well. So we we'll have hopefully more clinics joining our way of doing things and our community, because we want to reach more people with really high quality services. We're reaching out to a lot of sports clubs because they have sports doctors but not private GP. So the sports doctors are allowed to treat you if you've got an injury, but they can't treat your family, or they can't treat you if you've got something else. So we're covered to do all that. So we're reaching out to football clubs, rugby clubs, any professional sports people and their families, because it's so hard to get a good GP these days, and we can be that trusted connection. So we'd love to end up with a reverse plant into London finally, because we actually avoided London when I first launched, because there was 100 private GP clinics in London when I first joined, and there were 3 in Birmingham. So I then became the 4th in Birmingham. 2 then collapsed during lockdown, and now there's a proliferation of clinics all around the country, with as the NHS primary care is struggling, and we're kind of taking up the load. So I'd love to keep growing, keep home visiting, keep providing high quality care. We may even plant sort of internationally at key travel hubs as well, because that makes a lot of sense. Our clients travel, a lot of them kind of corporate business people who need services. Similarly, we're quite virtual, so they could use us remotely, and we're expanding our remote capacity.
Yes, wonderful. Wowzers, that's a lot of stuff going on. That's,
I think the next 5 years is going to be busy.
Absolutely brilliant. It's very exciting, and it will be great to circle back, maybe in 12 months to see where we are next.
Definitely. Oh, one last thing. My personal thing. I would love to try and do an Ironman triathlon before I'm 50. I did triathlon before I got poorly with the long COVID. I've just got back into training. I always said I'd like to try and see if I could do an Ironman, so I'm building up over the next 2 years to see if I'm capable of doing it. It's got to be alongside everything else, and it can be quite dominating. So I may do a half iron first. If I can survive that, I might even do a full one. We'll see.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. That's it'd be good to keep seeing how things are improving. So a couple of things before we finish, Ben. One would be, what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now?
I think what I would say is, don't expect the income to come in too quickly. Always have a backup plan. A bit like Q in James Bond, he always has an escape plan, and never let them see you bleed as well. So always have a backup plan. I've always worked in prison as a prison doctor part-time, alongside setting up private services, and that's given me a range of exposure. I ended up sort of as a kind of director level for 10 prisons as my sort of final highest post. So I've just resigned from to do this new expansion. So that's always kept me, A, paying into a pension, and B, sort of paid the bills, whilst this is my kind of nest egg, if you know what I mean, and my fun, my excitement. So I think always have something to fall back on. Never lose qualifications, or never get de-skilled if you can, because you never know what's going to happen. The economy changes. I think remain flexible in your approach, and don't put too much into any one thing. But at the same time, if you really find your USP, absolutely go for it like crazy. So I think don't put all your eggs in a basket, but when you get some success, build on that, and really go all in if you can, because I think it pays off once you've done your 10,000 hours of expertise, and you then find what your USP is.
Brilliant. Yeah, that very, very sound advice. And if you started again your business again, is there anything you do differently, particularly?
Oh, I think invest in marketing earlier. I didn't think I had the budget to do that, but I now see the direct link between sort of marketing of all types and actually, kind of growth. So, and I think, what else would I do? No, that's probably the only thing I would say right now. I mean, if anyone was saying, they were 18, they wanted to go into business, I would just say start doing something and learn some skills. Look at people who are already doing this stuff and stick to them like glue. Learn what they do. See if you can emulate that, some of their habits, some of their techniques, and work from there. And don't be afraid of failure. I've had various kind of setbacks in my life. I don't really consider them failures. I consider them learning experiences, because I had to retake my A-levels because I had post-viral fatigue. That taught me how to really study hard and absorb a lot of information, which was good when I got to med school. At med school, I was doing too much, and I failed my second year because I got ill with a pneumonia. And so, again, I had to really redo my second year of med school, which taught me that super well and helped me with all the biochemistry that I'm now using for long COVID.
Brilliant.
And I think, so don't be afraid of your failures. And ultimately, you set your own expectations. I think it's key to work out what drives you, and don't be driven by something that you're not aware of. Or I love that kind of Johari's window exercise, where you're trying to find out about yourself, let's say, what you don't know that you don't know. So you've got to introduce randomness, new experiences. You've got to get feedback from other people, and get that box of unknown as small as possible. The only way to do that is to step out and try and kind of experience, but be prepared to kind of take a bit of egg on the face. I think it's amazing if people trust you and you're honest about about things as a journey, then they get the journey that you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Well, Ben, it's been really fascinating talking to you, and I just love the enthusiasm that you have, and clearly it's going to be great to as I say, swing by and maybe touch base on a regular basis to see how things are progressing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Wonderful. And if anyone that is watching today that's interested to get in touch with you or the practice, what would be the easiest way to do that?
Okay, so the best way is through our website, which is www.drfinlays.co.uk. Alternatively, they can call our number. We might change to a national number, but I'll give you the current number, which is 0121 396 1323. So if you call that number, you'll get through to our switchboard. They will then put you through to our health concierge, and if necessary, people can get a free 5-minute chat with me if they're not sure about whether they're right for the service or if we can help. Like I said, we'll always try and direct you to something else if we can't help. But that 5-minute chat is, again, it's a chance to just sort of say, look, is this going to help? So we're ready and open for that, and looking forward to take those calls.
Brilliant. Well, again, thank you so much, Ben.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chris.